In the dead of winter, a rancher hired a quiet widow with 3 children, never knowing the past was still hunting her. As the snow deepened, so did the danger, until a single knock threatened to tear their fragile peace apart. Hey listeners, as we get ready to begin this tale of winter and new beginnings, tell me, where are you hearing this story from, and what time is it right now? If you enjoy these kinds of narratives, please like and subscribe so we can share more together. The sign hung uneven on the frozen post outside Willow Bend's market building, its edges hard with ice, and its writing a bit smeared from the night's snow. Most people walked by it without stopping, but the ones who paused looked longer than they planned to. Needed a chef for the cold season. Room, food, and fair pay. Michael Reed, Evergreen Ranch. A basic thing, really, but in the middle of the cold season, nothing was ever just basic. Michael had not planned to attract notice. He only needed assistance. The farm needed workers, and the cold season needed friends. Still, he sensed the stares when he rode past the village, as if advertising for a chef this late in the year labeled him as a man with some silent sadness the others were too scared to mention. That morning, the chill felt active, breathing slow across the lowland. Snow rolled like light hills, and the air tasted of metal and tree juice. Michael stepped out of the stable, gloves hard, breath rising in white clouds. The ground felt emptier this year, too broad and too quiet. He fixed the scarf around his neck, the one his late sister had made years ago, worn but holding on, and turned toward the home. He planned to go inside for coffee, but he stopped at the porch steps. A cart crept down the hill line, wheels breaking through frozen paths. The donkey moved slow, feet sinking deep into snow piles that absorbed sound. A woman held the ropes, a widow by the black cloth wrapped tight around her shoulders. 3 children sat bundled behind her, small forms under layers fixed more with wish than fabric. Michael felt his breath stop. This was not what he had requested. The cart halted near the porch. For a moment, no one spoke. The woman looked at him the way the cold season looks at a man who has tried too long to live alone. Quiet, judging, almost kind. Then she climbed down, boots sinking into snow. Up close, she looked young, early 30s maybe, but the cold season had marked its name on her face. Wind-burned cheeks, eyes that held a long-kept flame. Shoulders formed by load carried without protest. Snow melted on her eyelids. "Sir," she said, voice soft but firm, "I'm Sarah Thompson. I heard you advertised for a chef." Michael opened his mouth, but the words caught. Behind her, the children climbed down. 2 boys and a girl wrapped so tight they looked like moving blankets. The smallest held a rough cloth bag that made soft sounds.
Maybe pans, maybe all the parts of a life.
"I did," Michael managed, "but I wasn't expecting a family." Sarah nodded, not backing away. "I know," she swallowed once. "My husband died 6 months ago. We stayed with his brother's family as long as we could, but the cold season is kinder to some than others. They ask us to leave." Her chin lifted, a small act of defiance. "I work hard. I don't ask for gifts. We can sleep in the stable if needed, but my children need heat. If you'll accept us, I can cook, repair, clean, work from dawn to night." The wind slid between them, sharp and choosing. Michael looked at the children. The little girl shivered, fingers hidden in her sleeves. The oldest boy watched Michael closely, ready to dislike him if he gave reason. Then Michael looked back at Sarah, and something under his ribs moved. "You'll stay in the house," he said, stepping down from the porch. "All of you. Stable's no place for children." Sarah's breath stopped. She nodded too fast. "Warm up. We'll talk after." Inside, the home felt different the moment the door closed. Boots dripped melt water under the floorboards. Michael added wood to the fire higher, and the room seemed to breathe in, like it had been waiting years for that heat. Sarah stood near the fireplace, watching the flames grow brighter. Her children stayed close, eyes wide, taking in the small space. 1 table, 2 chairs, a bed, the stove glowing red. "This place is small," Michael whispered. Sarah shook her head. Small can be secure. They ate quietly, the kind of meal taken by people who had not trusted a hot bowl in a long time. Sarah moved through the kitchen with calm ability, serving soup, breaking bread. The children watched her like plants watching the sun. After supper, when the children slept under a mixed blanket Michael hadn't seen moved in years, he and Sarah sat across from each other, the stove between them humming low. "You've been east long?" Michael asked. "Near the river?" she said. "Factory work until my husband fell sick. After that, there wasn't room for families." He nodded. Loss out here had a sound. Doors closing, chairs sliding back for the last time. "What can you cook?" he asked. She smiled quick and personal. "Soup thick enough to fix a man, bread that won't break when butter touches it, dessert made from whatever lasts." Something relaxed in Michael's chest, an old memory of rising dough and warm kitchens. "You start tomorrow," he said. Days found a pattern faster than Michael expected. Sarah's cooking filled spaces he hadn't known were empty. Bread crusted gold, soup cooked slow. She cleaned the entrance clean each morning, repaired socks by lamplight, sang at dawn like music could be saved against the chill. Michael woke earlier now. He noticed the table set without asking. He noticed laughter, soft and surprised, coming into rooms that once echoed only his own footsteps. But the cold season kept track. By the second week, a man from the group stopped by, eyes curious, hat edged with frost. "You taking in strangers?" he asked. "They needed work," Michael said. "I pay fair." The man stayed longer than left. Questions pressed into the snow like footprints. A note appeared days later, pinned to the same post where Michael had placed his sign. No name, just one careful line. "Be careful who you bring into town." Sarah folded it without trembling and slipped it into her pocket. That night, after the children slept, she placed it on the table between them. "You won't leave," Michael said quietly. "I won't run," she answered. "Not with them." Snow grew deeper that week. The children turned broken boxes into slides. Sarah taught the girl to twist yarn. The oldest boy learned how to pile wood so it would last the night. The home felt fuller, warmer. Not everyone agreed. Robert Kane from the general store stopped when he passed the farm, eyes catching on a child's glove hung to dry. "Outsiders," he muttered once, loud enough for Michael to hear. Michael said nothing. One night, as wind scratched the window covers, Michael stood in the doorway and watched Sarah tuck the children in. Something tight and guarding coiled in his chest. The storm got worse days later. Snow erased the edge of the sky. The farm became a small island of light. Michael locked the door with steady hands, for the weather and for something else he could not yet name. Before dawn, he woke to silence that felt heavy. Sarah sat by the stove, watching the fire, cloth around her shoulders. "Storms upset me," she said softly. "They remind me how small we are." "If you need anything," Michael said. "You've given enough." A bump hit the porch, sudden and hard. Sarah stiffened. Michael opened the door and found a package placed carefully against the rail. Inside were cookies, jams, bread, and a note. "Storms too rough for grudges. Pastor Ellis." Thankfulness flooded Sarah's face, raw and unbelieving. Now, as this story builds with tension and warmth, pause for a moment. Where are you listening to this tale from, and what time is it showing on your clock? If it's keeping you engaged, remember to like and subscribe to support more stories like this one. Later, as Michael fixed a broken fence piece, he saw a dark shape at the edge of the property. A rider, watching, not coming closer, not leaving, then gone, taken by white. That night the wind returned, quieter but watching. Michael sat at the table, gun across his lap, the home breathing behind him. Snow broke outside. A lamp glow moved near the stable. Michael rose, heart slowing into something risky. The cold season, it seemed, was not done yet. The lamplight shook against the snow, casting long, trembling shadows across the stable wall. Michael stood still, one hand resting on the gun, the other braced against the doorframe. The wind had dropped, but the quiet felt sharper now, like the land itself was holding its breath. "Who's there?" Michael called, keeping his voice firm. The figure stepped closer, boots breaking slow and deliberate.
The lamp lifted just enough to show a man's face, pale and tired, eyes too calm for a night like this. "You, Michael Reed?" the man asked.
Michael did not answer right away. "Who's asking?" "My name's David Harper," the man said. "I'm looking for a woman named Sarah Thompson and her children." The chill slid deeper into Michael's chest. Behind him, the home creaked softly. He could feel Sarah's presence without seeing her, feel the way fear sharpened the air when a past thought it had found you again. "She's under my roof," Michael said, "and it's not a good night for visitors." David lowered the lamp slightly. "Her husband sent me." The words struck hard and clean. Sarah's husband, the man she had buried in her voice in the careful way she spoke of the past. Michael stepped fully onto the porch and closed the door behind him, sealing the heat inside. "She told me he died," Michael said. David breathed out, breath white and heavy. "Died to drink and madness maybe, but not the grave. He's alive. 4 was last I saw him." Snow whispered between them. Michael felt the weight of every promise he had made without speaking. "What do you want?" Michael asked. David's shoulders dropped. "My brother is broken. The cold season broke him worse. He went looking for her after she left, but storms and bottles slowed him down. I followed her path instead. The kids belong with family." The door behind Michael opened a crack. "David," Sarah's voice said, thin but firm. Michael turned. She stood in the doorway, cloth tight around her shoulders, eyes dark with memories that still knew how to hurt. The children slept behind her, unaware of how close the past had come to knocking loud enough to wake them. David lowered the lamp fully. "Thank God," he said. "I thought you'd frozen somewhere along the road." "I didn't," Sarah said, "and you shouldn't have come." "Someone had to," David replied. "He's been searching. He's sick with regret." Sarah stepped onto the porch, boards creaking beneath her weight. "Regret doesn't heal marks," she said quietly, "and it doesn't make a home safe." David's jaw tightened. "He's changed." "I know," Sarah said, "and I still can't go back." The wind carried the truth of it away into the dark. David looked between them, taking in Michael's stance, the gun within reach, the warm light spilling from the home. "I'll tell him you're alive," David said at last, "and safe. I'll try to stop him from coming." Sarah nodded once. "That's all I ask." David backed away, lamp moving, then disappeared into the storm like a thought the night took whole. Inside, Sarah shook. Michael placed a hand on her shoulder, solid and steadying. "You're safe," he said. She nodded, though tears finally slipped free. "I didn't want him finding us like that." "He won't," Michael said, "not without going through me." Days passed, but the air stayed tense. Word traveled faster than slides in the cold season. People in the village talked, some with worry, others with doubt sharpened by boredom and chill. Robert Kane stopped Michael outside the market building a week later. "You housing a runaway?" he asked, voice smooth with false concern. "She works for me," Michael said. "I pay her fair." So can spreading stories in a season where neighbors need each other. Robert backed off, but his eyes promised more. At the farm, Sarah worked harder than ever, as if movement itself could keep fear from settling. She cleaned, cooked, repaired, taught the children their letters by lamplight. Michael noticed the way she checked the road each morning, just once, quick and controlled. One afternoon, the youngest girl fell sick. Fever burned her small body, and her breath came shallow and fast. Sarah did not panic. She moved with quiet speed, cooling cloths, whispered prayers. Michael rode through snow to fetch the doctor, returning hours later with frozen fingers and relief following close behind. The doctor left with a nod. "She'll recover," he said. Sarah sank into a chair, tiredness finally claiming her. Michael brought her tea. Their hands brushed. Neither pulled away. That night, as the child slept easier, Sarah spoke. "I never meant to stay," she admitted, "but every day here feels less like hiding and more like living." Michael looked at her, firelight softening the lines the cold season had drawn. "You belong here," he said before he could stop himself. She met his gaze. Something fragile and hopeful lived there now. The storm broke at last, leaving the world bright and sharp. Snow melted into silver lines along the hills. With spring came harder truths. A letter arrived, sealed and formal. A notice. Sarah's husband had filed a claim. He wanted his family returned. Sarah read it in silence, then folded it carefully. "I won't run again," she said, "but I won't go back." Michael nodded. "Then we stand." They rode to the village together the next day, hands firm, shoulders straight. People watched from doorways. Whispers followed like shadows. The law officer listened slow and careful. David's statement helped. So did the doctor's quiet words. The truth settled heavy in the room. By evening, the decision was clear. Sarah and the children would stay where they were safe. When they returned to the farm, the sun dipped low, painting the snow with gold. Sarah stood on the porch, breathing in the air like someone tasting freedom. The cold season still remained, but its hold had loosened, and for the first time, Michael believed it might let them go. Spring came late to Evergreen Ranch, slow and careful, like it was unsure whether it was welcome. Snow still clung to the shadows, but the ground beneath had begun to soften, releasing the smell of wet soil and pine. For Michael, the land felt different now, less like something he survived and more like something he lived with. Sarah noticed it too. The children spent their mornings outside, boots muddy, laughter loud enough to carry across the lowland. Jack practiced piling fence posts with Michael, his small hands serious about doing it right. Emily followed Sarah everywhere, asking questions about bread, about flowers, about why the sun stayed longer each evening. But peace, Michael had learned, was never something you held without cost. The man came at dusk. Not David. This one rode hard, coat worn thin, eyes sharp and restless. Michael saw him from the porch and felt the old chill return, the kind that had nothing to do with weather. Sarah froze beside him. She knew before the horse stopped. Her husband climbed down without a word. He looked smaller than the ghost Sarah had carried, thinner, his beard uneven, his hand shook though he tried to hide it. His eyes went first to the home, then to the children peeking from the doorway. "Sarah," he said, his voice cracked, "you took everything." She stepped forward firm. "I took my children and myself." "You ran," he snapped, "left me to decay." Michael moved beside her, not touching but present. "You're on private land," he said calmly. The man laughed once, bitter. "This is my family." Sarah's voice did not rise. Family doesn't strike. Family doesn't scare children into silence. The man's eyes flicked to Michael, burning with envy and shame. "You think you saved her?" "I think she saved herself," Michael answered. The law officer arrived soon after. Called by a neighbor who had seen the rider, David came too, standing between his brother and the porch like a wall built too late. The argument was loud, messy, full of old wounds dragged into open air. But truth, once spoken enough times, has weight. In the end, the law officer turned to Sarah. "Do you wish to return?" She looked at her children, at Michael, at the home glowing warm behind them. "No," she said. The man dropped, anger draining into something empty. He mounted his horse without another word and rode away smaller with every step. When he was gone, Sarah sank onto the porch steps, shaking. Michael knelt beside her. "It's over," he said. She nodded, tears finally falling. "I didn't know it could end." Summer followed like a promise kept. The farm grew green, work grew easier, laughter became normal. Sarah stayed not as a chef anymore, but as something else entirely. One evening, Michael stood on the porch watching the children chase glowing bugs. Sarah joined him, shoulder brushing his. "This place gave us back our breath," she said. Michael took her hand. "You gave it life." She smiled then, full and open, and the cold season, when it returned, found a home no longer alone.